After all the setbacks, after all the talk, finally, there seems to be some movement at BYJU'S, because it looks like there could possibly be an independent board committee to be set up to advise the CEO of BYJU'S, Baiju Ravindran. And that came out of the EGM of BYJU'S, which was held yesterday evening, the extraordinary general meeting of BYJU'S, a resolution taken where BYJU'S will appoint this board advisory committee, as it's called, BAC, which will have independent directors on it, and they will be advising the CEO on everything up until governance and governance structures within BYJU'S. We have my colleague and friend Amit joining us on the broadcast this morning with more on that. Amit, talk to us. Even as is talk of some shareholders demanding the resignation of Baiju Ravindran and then the placement of an interim CEO, we're hearing that, but there's no confirmation on that. Even as that talk continues, there's now this new board advisory committee. My only question is, this is again appointed by BYJU'S, isn't it?
You said some movement. The operative word, remember, will be some. Is that enough? We do not know. Yesterday we spoke about, Karthik mentioned, who will tell him to step down. He is not stepping down. The stakeholders are questioning the 910 million of the 1.2 billion loan, where it is gone. He's committed to them to meet the deadline of the 2022 audit by September and the 2023 audit by December this year. He's committed to them. This one, he's still the CEO. These people are independent directors with good reputations who will advise him. What comes to mind is something like in political parties we have Margdarshak Mandal. So this is what. So my suspicion is still, and let me wear the hat of a fiction writer. He has something to hide, which probably goes deeper, and they are shy of basically revealing it. So okay, he's sticking to his chair.
Okay. But Karthik, I'm sure you also heard this entire talk about at that extraordinary general meeting, there were a section of shareholders who apparently demanded Baiju Ravindran's resignation and the appointment of an interim CEO. There are no confirmation on these reports. These are pure speculation, so to speak.
In its tweet, in fact, BYJU'S has denied it. BYJU'S has said that there is no question of any change in leadership right now as we speak.
Right.
And yes, I think the pressure from the shareholders, rightly so, resulted in the formation of at least this idea of a BAC, a Board Advisory Council, and committee, in fact. And the idea there, of course, has been that that BYJU'S is going to finally take charge of some of the misgivings that it has seen itself in the midst of. And these account on, of course, the books not being audited being the crucial point number one, the topmost issue in the corporate governance chart of BYJU'S, and it's a fairly large list there. So of course, books not being audited, like Amit mentioned, FY22 books likely to be audited by end of September, FY23 books likely to be audited by December end. And then, in addition to that, the $1.2 billion loan, negotiations, according to Baiju Ravindran, and what he told the shareholders, is that negotiations are on between the lenders and BYJU'S, and he has said that none of the two parties are interested in taking this battle to a lawsuit into courts, and some sort of an amicable negotiation and a potential roadmap for repayment of that loan should take place. I think the shareholders' pressure on getting on perhaps pressurizing Baiju Ravindran to step aside, step down, make way for an interim CEO, have resulted in the formation of this BAC. And I think the founder CEO is publicly at least open to getting an independent set of board members from diverse industries, diverse expertise to sit on the board and act as an advisor to Baiju Ravindran himself. I think some sort of a measure to allay the fears of shareholders and investors alike that, we are going to take our corporate governance.
Is that some going to be enough, Karthik? I mean, the operative word is some. Is this going to be enough at this stage?
Yeah, well, I think some is definitely better than nothing. Okay. Even if this is an eyewash, even if this is something that that has fraudulent intentions, I don't want to speculate on whether those are fraudulent indeed or not. But even if the company has something to hide, and even if the company realizes that whatever it is hiding will someday be out in the public, at least you're taking one step forward and getting independent board members to act as advisors to the board, to BYJU'S, and help the company navigate through this difficult territory it finds itself in.
Right, Amit, all of this coming out of an extraordinary general meeting, or EGM, that BYJU'S held, chaired by, of course, Baiju Ravindran. There is going to be another extraordinary general meeting to be held 3 weeks from now, by which time the so-called Board Advisory Committee, or BAC, has to be appointed.
Yeah. See, there is trouble, and I believe they are buying time. They have an IPO underway. If that goes through well, I think their troubles will be tided over. But I believe they are buying time for now, and that is why these measures. So some are definitely better than nothing. And if the IPO goes well and they are able to raise their next round of funding, I think their troubles will go away, at least for some time to come.
Really, Karthik? Are you looking at a stage where there could be the great escape for BYJU'S from all of its troubles? Is there how serious do you think that possibility is at this stage?
Bleak. I doubt it's going to. I doubt anything is going to come out right now. But I would hold on to, again, my speculation until at least end of September, end of December, by when the books get audited. So that way, at least we know, and the investors know, and the shareholders know where the money came from, where the money went, and what really happens to the loan book, the possibility of whatever loan BYJU'S has, $1.2 billion on its books to be repaid. I think all of those doubts will get clarified only once the audited financial statements come out and I doubt too much of that is going to come out in the public. Remember, it's not a publicly listed company. There is no sort of guideline or rule asking startups or unlisted companies to release their financial disclosures.
True.
So I don't know how much of that would come out for public good, but at least these financial audits will have to be shared with investors, with the board, independent or not very independent. We'll have to see again who constitutes that board. But the shareholders, the investors, and hopefully some of us should be able to get access to those numbers to make some sense of when these miseries are likely to end or explode even more.
Now, and in that sense, the chances of BYJU'S getting fresh funding, which could be a major balm on all its troubles. From that perspective, who is going to be willing to pump in a huge round of funding into BYJU'S, considering the situation it is in? That's my only question.
You're right. And in fact, about a week back, Krishna, we were discussing that while this $1.2 billion loan continues to stand on the books of BYJU'S, BYJU'S was looking to speak to new investors, not existing investors, new investors, to raise another $1 billion worth, which would generate some cash flow. But again, around that time, we saw Process downvaluing its own stake in BYJU'S to about 1/4 of the valuation at which it was picked up. So the point being that even if BYJU'S was to sell cheap and raise some capital, that capital is only going to help fulfill a very short-term cash infusion issue and not really help the company get out of the troubled waters it's in.
Right. So a long road ahead for BYJU'S if it wants to get some semblance of sanity back at the company, isn't it, Amit? The only thing I can even think of at this stage is all the people working at BYJU'S. There are so many jobs that BYJU'S still provides. After having fired over 3,500 people, there's still so many thousands are still employed at BYJU'S. And also, with every passing day, the ripple effect that this will have on the rest of the edtech sector and the jobs in the edtech sector, Amit.
I'm an optimist over here, and I hope this Board Advisory Committee, BAC, restructures their company, gives them something new on the drawing board. And EdTech is a new sector, whatever you like, whatever we may say. These guys are early entrants into the market.
The first movers.
I'm sure these people will find something up their sleeve to basically excite new customers. And if they do, the balm that you're talking about will be more than enough, and they will have new rounds of funding, and they will be basically poster boys for the EdTech sector, as we all want them to be, because they are the first movers here.
Right. So some optimism is always good, especially first thing in the morning. Thank you, Amit, for providing that much needed shot of optimism. We continue to hope that the jobs. I would personally continue to hope the jobs will be saved. More jobs will be added. In the edtech sector going forward. It continues to be a source of major employment in the country. That's the hope over here. Let's see what happens. But moving on here on the show, away from BYJU'S to, well, we're talking about optimism. I have some news that isn't really sounding all that good. 25% of all GST accounts are fake. Well, that's according to the latest findings of the government appointed committee, and this says that 25% of the 69,000 GST accounts in the country are fake, and they have led to losses worth of 15,000 crore rupees. You heard that right, 15,000 crore rupees. Amit, you've been tracking the story. Talk to us. GST, we've been talking about how fake PANs and fake Aadhars get used, but this number is huge. 1 in every 4 GST accounts is fake.
I would like to basically find out what constitutes that fake. I'll go back to what I was. I mean, I had a GST account before I joined here. I had my own little outfit. And when the pandemic came, I was filing 0, but I still had to file because the pandemic, basically there was no business. So does that even constitute fake when you don't have any business, or it is basically they've just opened an account in GST for the sake of for getting some
okay, before we get to that, talk to us about CBIC and what exactly has been the findings of 15,000 crore rupees. Karthik, if you can help us understand what is exactly gone on over here, because the headline number is very clear. 1 in every 4 GST account is fake, and we've lost 15,000 crore rupees worth of tax revenue.
That's right, Krishna. But I think I would not take the liberty of extrapolating that finding of 25% of the 69,000 accounts scrutinized by the GST network, right? Okay. It's not the total number of GST accounts. That number would be much larger, and I don't think we can use natural probability. I know you're a student of statistics and that temptation to use the natural laws of normalization, that it's a large enough sample size, 69,000. You need only 35 for the normal bell curve to be normalized, right? We're talking about 69,000, but these 69,000 are not randomly picked. These 69,000 accounts showed some signs of misgiving and showed some signs of not being accurate, and hence they got scrutinized. And of these 69,000 that got scrutinized, 25%, you said the number right, 25% seem to be fake. It's still a huge number, but I would not extrapolate that 25,000 or 25% rather to the entire population.
What about the money lost?
Yeah, coming to that. Right. Now, incidentally, Delhi seems to be, unfortunately, the biggest fake GST market of this 25%, right?
Dilwalon ki Delhi.
Well, not really in this case. So what has really happened is there's something very critical in GST, and we've done long debates on that, called input credit.
Right.
Right. Now, what is input credit? Let's say you're a supplier of X goods, and those goods require certain raw material which you process. The raw material that you procure, you and the supplier of that raw material have paid GST on that. Now, in your books, when you file your GST returns, you seek certain input credit so that the double taxation is avoided.
Correct.
That input credit, which reduces your overall liability, tax liability, is what input credit really is. Now, what has happened in these 25% of the cases of the 69,000 accounts that got scrutinized, the 25% which are fake, they've taken input credit from some entity, put that on their books, taken the rebate on their own tax filing, the GST filing, even if it's a zero return that Amit was talking about. They have filed 0 returns or higher than 0 returns on the back of the input credit that they have sought. Now, when the CBIC, Central Board for Indirect Taxes and Customs, went deeper into that value chain to discover these companies which were suppliers to the companies that have filed GST, they realized those were bogus companies. They never existed. If the companies never existed, the services or raw material provided to these 69,000 or 25% of these 69,000 is fictitious. So 15,000 crore rupees worth of input credit has been taken by companies in a market where those companies which have provided the input don't exist, and hence no input was provided in the first place. So that's the 15,000 crores you're talking about, and obviously big money in a country where the overall tax base is low. We saw e-invoicing as a concept being generated in 2020, and this input credit being critical to e-invoicing and matching of books, tallying of books between suppliers and eventual sellers. E-invoicing would have, to my mind, played a crucial role in this tally mismatch happening between availing of input credit with a GST number assigned to that input credit and that GST number, or a company doing business with that GST number, non-existential.
Right, Amit, fascinating to always watch Karthik, deconstruct something, peel the layers of an onion as he always talks about. But the fact of the matter is, I think Amit's question is fascinating. I have a similar problem myself. All these GST accounts, which are not used, they're used to file nil, the returns on a monthly basis, because you have to file GST returns on a monthly basis. Would they, qualify as a fake account?
No, they would not qualify as a fake account till as long as you're filing that zero return.
All right.
If you stop filing that zero return, you're still not a fake account, you're a defaulter. You're a defaulter on your tax liability, or the return of at least a statement, if not money, to the government,
that I exist,
claiming that you exist and you continue to be on the GSTN books, but you don't have any income, or you don't have any taxable income to file returns on. Right. Fake accounts would be accounts that have been created to do fraudulent activity, to provide input credit to other companies, and eventually not really providing any goods or services to really claim any tax on.
Fair enough. The only thing is that this drive by the Central Board for Indirect Taxes Committee, which began, is going to continue till the 15th of July. So we're still looking at more findings coming out, isn't it?
That's good news, Krishna. If you ask me, we live in a country of tax evaders, direct as well as indirect. We live in a country where very few people file real tax returns, and I'm glad that the government is going after them. Of course, the government has gone a little overboard with, let's say, introduction of TCS of 20% on travel expenses above 7 lakhs, etc. Those have been issues where I think there has been a little bit of the government overplaying its hand.
Right.
Or even for that matter, the discussion we had yesterday on going after IVF clinics and medical colleges. Well, there would be data to support the government's overaction on that account. But overall, I think going after tax evaders is definitely the right thing to do in a country where we are still talking about a fiscal deficit, where we are still talking about government's revenue being lesser than the government's expenditure.
Right.
So I think going after tax evaders should be the #1 priority of the Finance Ministry, of the CBDT, of the CBIC, and whatever means, and to be fair to the government, they've also simplified it. So earlier there was harassment of individual taxpayers by the CBDT. When when tax evasion had to be justified by making multiple trips to the tax offices. Now the government has instituted a faceless tax evasion process. So if you have a notice from the tax authorities that you seem to be somebody who has concealed your income, not filed your taxes, it's faceless. You don't even need to walk up to the income tax office. All of that can be done over email. So while the government is trying to simplify this for individuals, but I think going after tax evaders, institutional, corporations, or individuals in equal measure is a need of the hour.
Right, and another interesting thing I was noticing is that the CBIC used artificial intelligence and data analytics to track down these GST accounts. Fascinating, Amit, isn't it? Even for the taxman's weeding out process of the fake accounts, the artificial intelligence and data analytics are the go-to tools.
They are unbiased. They are not influenced by anybody, and they're going to take away quite a few jobs.
Fact of the matter is that for the first time ever since it came about, the usage of ChatGPT is down. We will get to that story in a bit, about what's happening with ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. But moving on here away to another important story that we've been tracking for a couple of weeks now, and when it began as 100 rupees per kilogram or 100 rupees per kg, and it looks like it's very, very close to the 200 rupees per kilogram mark. We're talking about tomatoes in India. Tomatoes in India are selling. I think it's going to go, we were talking about how tomatoes have become more expensive than chicken. I think it's going towards becoming as expensive as silver, kind of precious metals. That's the direction it's going in. And to the point where McDonald's is refusing to serve tomatoes to consumers. Believe it or not, Amit, Karthik, who wants to take a shot at this one?
Okay, I'll take a shot. So, Ahmedabad, gift city.
Yes.
SGX Nifty moving to gift city, etc. Remember, we just spoke about it. Ahmedabad has got tomatoes selling at 256 rupees a kg. 256 rupees. Can
what
you
are the
believe
silver
that?
rates for the day for the kilo?
We'll get to that. So 256
Petrol is
rupees a
97.
kg.
Petrol is 97 rupees a litre at this point in time. Wow. Okay.
So 256 rupees a kg in Ahmedabad. I know it's a vegetarian market, but then the Mek Aloo Tikki burger still has tomato as a great ingredient, right?
Right.
Come back to Delhi NCR, 186 rupees or 184 rupees, I checked this morning, for a kg of tomatoes.
If it is available.
And it's not available.
If it is available, I wanted to say that. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin the story a little back. I think we're talking about prices a little too early. It's not available. First of all, it's not available on most of your, quick grocery service delivery apps. We've tried over here. We're talking about Noida. We can confidently tell you he's just come down from Delhi. Noida, Delhi, NCR. We're not getting tomatoes even if you're willing to pay 185 rupees a kilogram. Karthik, go ahead.
Yeah, so McDonald's, I think, has done a smart thing. It's saying, I can't overnight increase the price of my burger. Let me just cut short the tomato that goes into it. But I wonder what McDonald's over time is going to do with the tomato ketchup. I think that is going to be another story. But for now, tomato, the raw
those
sliced
tomatoes are a long-term procurement deal? I'm sure those prices are locked or something that.
I hope so. But right now, fresh tomato slices are not going to be found in your burgers anytime soon.
All right. Not just the Mek Aloo Tikki burger. Any burger that involves a tomato. Any dish that involves a slice of tomato.
The chicken McGrill also has a nice juicy slice of tomato, a nice crisp one. It used to be. Well, I'll have to order one now and see what it tastes like without the tomato.
Right. Amit, are you planning to, are you one of those who's not going to pick up that burger because there's not a slice of tomato in them?
I have been eating at home for quite some time now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen,
to continue that.
What have you been cooking at home without tomatoes?
That's the thing. Well, it's not a burger, but tomatoes go in everything.
Right.
So it's going to be a problem for everybody. But my point is, the first thing that comes to mind is that people are hoarding or people are making money because the monsoons are bad.
Right.
What we find out now, that's not the reason. It seems it's a virus. So there are two large producing regions in India where tomatoes are produced. Number one is Nasik, two is Kolar.
As in Nasik in Maharashtra and Kolar in Karnataka.
Nasik production happens till April and May. After that, their distribution stops when the Kolar produce takes on the market. There is a certain white fly which is spreading a leaf curl disease on the produce of the Kolar farmlands, which has basically cut down the production of Kolar. And Kolar basically supplies to almost all over India, even Bangladesh, tomatoes, whether it's Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal and Gujarat, and whatever. So that is the reason, and it may not be just that somebody is hoarding because they're taking advantage that the monsoon is bad, so we can jack up prices.
Right, that's fascinating, isn't it, Karthik? From monsoon destroying, from untimely monsoon, extra monsoon rains destroying crops to from tomatoes not being sown in parts of Karnataka. We knew that was also a problem. To now a disease affecting tomatoes. This story is far from over. We'll have to really see, because you have the entire full monsoon ahead of us right now. We'll have to see how that monsoon pans out and how we're able to manage tomato stock, because once upon a time in India, they used to say onion prices can bring down a government. It used to be the joke at one point in time, especially state governments. But then it looks like tomato prices are really going through a huge tumult that will take a while to settle down.
You're right, Krishna, and we talk about tomatoes more frequently than other vegetables, but I think there's a similar story also playing out in ginger, for example.
Right.
Or in cumin seeds. So the problem is not restricted to tomatoes alone. In the case of this whitefly virus, which is attacking the tomato crop, I think that is unique to the tomatoes, at least from whatever little I have read or not read about the whiteflies. But I think overall unseasonal rainfall, flooding situation, destruction of crop, destruction of harvested crop lying in the warehouses, all of that has reduced the supply of tomatoes, and tomatoes, unlike many other food products, has a much lower shelf life. So the chances of destruction during transit from, let's say, the warehouse to the mandi also results in the crop not being available in good measure to be sold. So all of this, I think, totally tying up to the low tomato story. And if tomatoes were a listed commodity on the stock markets, guess what color it would be on the trading charts? This would be the color, red, absolutely.
I'm just thinking a lot of commodity traders who are trading in tomato, the kind of windfalls that they're going to be witnessing in these times are going to be incredible. Let's not forget, a lot of people are going to be making a lot of money because of the scarcity in tomatoes. Like Amit was talking about, onions, potatoes, tomatoes, man, simple as that. You cannot run short of either of these three things. And the problem here that we notice is that both onions and potatoes have a longer shelf life, doesn't get damaged in transport as much, unlike tomatoes, which need more care and concern in terms of warehousing them and transporting them. So the tomato story, tomatoes turning more and more sour with every passing day, and we'll be keeping our eyes on them. Ladies and gentlemen, 186 rupees per kilogram here in Delhi. 256 rupees per kilogram in Ahmedabad. No, this is not over. We will be keeping a track of that. But moving on and away from tomatoes to tourism, especially tourism to a country which has seen so many troubles in the recent past, from a political crisis to an economic crisis, both at its peak simultaneously. And before that, it was rocked by terror attacks and bomb blasts. And now finally, Sri Lanka is on a recovery path. And it is also playing host to the biggest travel convention, biggest global travel convention, where the who's who of the world travel industry will be present, and they will be thinking about ways to bring back the tourists, to bring back tourism to Sri Lanka, not just to show the world what Sri Lanka is made of, but also to get Sri Lanka back on its feet economically. We have my colleague Deepak Badana now joining us with more details on that front. Deepak, thank you so much for taking time out to join us this morning here on Business Plus. Talk to us about this the global travel convention that is taking place in Sri Lanka this time around.
Well, it's quite a star-studded affair here. We have the President of Sri Lanka here. The Prime Minister of Sri Lanka will be gracing the event today. We'll be having dignitaries, indeed ambassadors from more than, say, 7-8 nations arriving today. In fact, News 9, for that matter, will be hosting a session with 5 charge d'affaires and ambassadors from across the world. And yours truly will be doing the honors there. Coming to the tourism front, the aftershocks of the turmoil faced by Sri Lanka can still be seen, but there is, a silent sense of dignity amongst the people. You don't see the desperation that was there a few months ago. The country is well on its way to recovery. And I'm glad to say that India's played a very important role in this. Yesterday, we had the pleasure of interacting with the Honorable High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Mr. Gopal Vagle, and he made a number of announcements that gave heart to a lot of Sri Lankans. For instance, he said, that presently there are 3 flights every week from Chennai to Jaffna. This is going to be increased to daily flights. There are also chances of, a ferry from Rameshwaram to Jaffna, which will be reintroduced after almost 3 decades. Besides that, Indian currency is already a mode, of transaction across Sri Lanka, and there are talks about bringing in UPI. So that's going to really help a lot of Indians who visit Sri Lanka, and Indians happen to be the largest constituency of tourists who are coming to the nation.
Right, Deepak Badana, they are joining us live from Colombo, the capital of Sri Lanka. Deepak, it's going to be a 3-day convention. Talk to us. It is just kicked off. Talk to us about what is lined up at the convention in the days going forward.
We've been having sessions. So there are leaders from, say, the aviation industry, there are tour operators, there are travel agencies, and there are representatives of hotel chains. So we've got a number of sessions lined up with counterparts from both Sri Lanka and India. Besides that, we have representatives from the Sri Lankan Tourism Promotion Bureau, the Travel Agents Association of India, which is indeed organizing the whole affair. And we've got the Sri Lankan Association of International Tour Operators. Inbound tour operators. So we've got a lengthy agenda with a number of sessions. We had the opening ceremony yesterday. And over the course of today and tomorrow, we're going to have discussions which range from, say, making it more convenient, finding ways to promote it further. Already, regional tourism, for instance, a figure that has been touted again and again is that the number of Indians visiting Sri Lanka is about the same as the number of Indians who are visiting Europe. And that's despite, the contrast in, say, the economic value, the cultural familiarity between Indians and Sri Lankans. So they're trying to find ways wherein we could scale it up even further. They're trying to find ways by which it would be easier for, say, Indian companies to host their events here. There are talks of turning Sri Lanka into a preferred wedding and holiday destination. And this is besides a slew of cultural activities that have been going on. We've been fated with, dances, traditional anthems. We've got a number of really talented singers. For instance, Mr. Ricky Baria performed yesterday. It was really good. And I'm just looking forward to the next 2-3 days.
Right, so a mix of serious conversations and of course some cultural festivities and fun, isn't it, Deepak? And all in the hope that, tourism is back to Sri Lanka. And I'm sure, they know the economic importance overall and also how much India can support in the economic revival of Sri Lanka.
So this has been a theme which has been running, it's been a continuous part of every conversation that I've come across here. For instance, Mr. Gajabahu, who happens to be the head of the Sri Lankan Tourism Promotion Bureau, he referred to India as the big brother and, which elicited a laugh from the audience. And he added, in the best sense of the word, he says that the shared heritage, the cultural values that are shared across South Asia are really coming into play when we talk about promotion of tourism. And even more than that, general cooperation. Indians here, be it the travel agents, our diplomats, the businessmen, they've been very clear that it's not just about the money, it's not just about the business, it's also about helping a friend in need. And our two nations, we've had a shared history that spans thousands of years. This is just going to be a...
Right. I'm afraid we've lost that connection with Deepak Vedana, who joined us live from Colombo in Sri Lanka. The annual convention, Global Travel Convention, being held from the 6th of July till the 9th of July. The TAAI convention being held in Sri Lanka after an 18-year gap. And all in the hopes that the revival in tourism in Sri Lanka will lead to an economic revival for the country, which is, making all the right moves to get back to normalcy from all the troubles it has faced over the recent years. And India being a crucial player in the revival of Sri Lanka's tourism and Sri Lanka's economy. Karthik, I was in Sri Lanka about, just before its economic crisis took off. A beautiful country. I was there in Colombo and then in Gali and then in Negombo. Beautiful country, great people. And when I was there, it was just incredible for me to think that, how come we became two separate countries? Because this just felt like a natural extension of South India, where I come from. And very difficult, some streets in Colombo looked like streets in Chennai. There were no tall skyscrapers. They weren't into one of those things. There was this mood of South India, which is sort of extending into Sri Lanka. It's a fascinating place, and more importantly, even as we help our neighbors in the economic revival, it also pays us back. Over a period of time, in terms of having healthy, economically well, doing well for themselves neighbors, isn't
Totally, Krishna. But, and soon after you would have come back, remember the images that we saw in Sri Lanka, and that, of course, was a little heart-wrenching.
Yes.
But Sri Lanka owes the world about $7.1 billion right now.
Right.
And a good $3 billion of that is owed to China, $1.2 billion to India. So, or 1.1 billion or so to India. So, actually, China has also taken as much interest in Sri Lanka's recovery as India has. So, I think it's not just going to be the economic power, the economic support. And Indian government, in fact, has given a 12-year period to Sri Lanka to repay that development loan. But the point is, India is not alone in helping Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka is also very, very critical geopolitically, because the Indian Ocean and the whole access to India from the south could happen through Sri Lanka. So overall, for national security, for geopolitics, Sri Lanka continues to be a very, very important part of the Asian continent. And with China also taking interest in Sri Lanka's development, I think India will have to play its diplomatic cards very well, not just with economic support, which China has well superseded India's support to Sri Lanka, but even through soft power, even through other softer measures in aiding development of Sri Lanka to ensure that Sri Lanka and India continue to share this common bond of bonhomie that has been our penchant for decades now. And that should not get mitigated, and every diplomatic effort should be made for India and China to continue to be greater friends than Sri Lanka and China.
Right, and talking about soft power, one way of doing it is that more and more Indians take time out to go visit Sri Lanka. Fits well within their budgets. A beautiful country, offers a variety of experiences from the mountains to the sea to beautiful cities with quaint architecture. So more
Indians on arrival, I think.
And visa are on arrival. They're not going to check you up as your entire financial history before they let you in.
Taking on from one thing that Badana said, that they are promoting Sri Lanka as the wedding destination.
Yeah.
So it's basically welcome to the billionaires who are right now going to Parma and Lake Como in Italy to the shores of
and the middle class, Amit. I would say the middle class, the upper middle class, which are starting to look at destination weddings, aspiring to be like the rich. They keep, they're right now doing, anywhere from Goa to Thailand. I think Sri Lanka makes for a fantastic destination. They're even doing Maldives these days. But then Sri Lanka makes it a fascinating destination for weddings as well, and of course for reunions, school reunions, college reunions, family trips, because there are tea estates in Sri Lanka which are beautiful to visit, even if you're going in a large group as a family. So more Indians visiting Sri Lanka will continue this bond that India has been having with Sri Lanka, and of course the fact that a lot of these Sinhalese songs end up becoming such a rage here in India.
Go viral on social media.
So and then we convert them into Hindi songs and Tamil songs, and then we enjoy that
and political songs. Election time.
Yeah, so we will this is one of the best ways of continuing the bond. Think about it. Within India, we continue our bonds through movies and music. Pan India movies and pan India music. So it's time to go pan South Asia music and pan South Asia movies to keep our soft power going and keep our bonds with our neighbors growing in an increasingly volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous VUCA world that we live in. But moving on here, away from Sri Lanka to another story that we are tracking that we just told you about as well, and that is on the all-famous, all-ubiquitous ChatGPT. And believe it or not, for the first time since we heard about ChatGPT, for the first time ever, ladies and gentlemen, the number of users of ChatGPT, the number of people using ChatGPT, access ChatGPT in the month of June has come down. It's the first time ever. Keep in mind that ChatGPT's growth numbers have beaten every other social media platform. It's the fastest. It's beaten Facebook, of course, Instagram, WhatsApp. You name a social media platform, ChatGPT has beaten that. But for the first time ever, ChatGPT users are going down. Amit, what's going on?
Lots of numbers here. They launched in November. For the first time in June over May, the mobile traffic has declined 9.7%. Their unique visitors traffic has declined 5.7%. The time spent on ChatGPT has come down by 8.5%, and that's a lot. They have a target. OpenAI has given itself a target of 200 million revenue this year. So basically, this may not be good news on one side, but imagine the kind of frenzy that happened when ChatGPT was launched. They had touched 100 million active monthly users in January 2023. 100 million. They launched in November. Monthly users were 100 million in January within 2.5 months of their launch. It today boasts 1.5 billion visits a month. So those are the kind of numbers they are grappling with. I think so this decline will give them time to basically up their services, bandage or paper over whatever glitches that are happening and which are reported also over time about ChatGPT. And I think to that extent, it's a good it's a good thing that has happened to them.
Okay, well, I think anecdotal evidence, I don't think I have used ChatGPT in the last 1.5 months or so. Obviously, when the buzz was high, when everybody was talking about it, when everybody was, trying to explore the hidden facets of what magic ChatGPT can generate, by just putting in a one-line query, it was fun, no doubt. It was fun. It was an eye-opener. It was exciting. But then for me, the utility dropped maybe, there was no utility. I mean, there was fun, but I didn't find much utility in it.
Well.
So I think a lot of people like me would have experienced that over time.
Did you experience that?
That you went in, you liked it, you enjoyed it. It was a nice toy. You played with it for a few days, for a few weeks, for a few months. And then, hey, let's move on to something else. That something else is still in quest. I haven't found that something else.
Okay.
One of the reasons maybe, and I'm just saying maybe, when ChatGPT 4 came, it came with a price tag of $20 a month.
Okay.
So it was not free access. So probably that could be one reason. The other reason was in May they launched their iOS application.
Right.
And that saw 530,000 downloads in that month itself. 15 million up to now till the 4th of July, which is a landmark date in the US.
Right.
So
Independence Day in the US.
Yeah. So maybe there's a correction because of that. Again, I say maybe. But yeah, $20 a month is little more than free.
And of course, part of that traffic going to all the Apple users will also would have meant that not enough unique visitors came to the ChatGPT platform. Okay. Early days. We'll have to see how it goes. But just for now, ChatGPT numbers are down for the month of June 2023. And with that, we've completely run out of time here on this edition of Business Plus. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Amit, and thank you, Karthik, for being with us as always this morning. This is KrishnaKumar signing off. Keep it with News 9.
ChatGPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies.
A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark Side of the Boom. Streaming now. Gautam Adani, one of the richest men in the world, or a business honcho, accused of manipulating the market.
अदानी जी 609 नंबर से दूसरे नंबर तक कैसे पहुंचे? सिर्फ एक सवाल पूछा, नरेंद्र मोदी जी, आपका अदानी जी से रिश्ता क्या है?
He has given the space, the railways, the airport, which he has no experience also. So the country's interest has been compromised.
Government has been very clearly supporting few industrial groups, including Adani's industrial group.
Target Adani. Streaming now.
He thought he could outlast us. And 1 year later, the evidence is right here in this room.
Who will blink first?
So far from preventing the expansion of NATO, Russian actions have actually resulted in the expansion of NATO.
It's a mess for Russia and it's a mess for the Western world, for NATO and the United States.
Putin is a dictator, and if he loses, that means the end of his regime, and probably of him personally. So he has to keep going.
Year 2. No end in sight. Streaming now.
Modi and business tycoon Adani are close allies.
he is old, rich, opinionated and dangerous.
Adani is accused of stock manipulation and his stock collapsed like a house of cards. India is an interesting case. It's a democracy, but its leader, Narendra Modi, is no Democrat.
These designs to weaken Indian democracy will be met with the might of India.
Modi is silent on the subject, but he will have to answer questions from foreign investors and in Parliament.
He's himself said publicly that he's amoral. So a short seller who's made his money through dubious deals is now trying to pretend he's a philanthropist. He has the good of humankind in mind.
Mr. Soros speaks for himself. He is not the voice of the West.
He's malevolent, he's misinformed, and he thinks he can get away with it because he's very rich.
Some people are uncomfortable, perhaps even confused by the new assertive India that they are witnessing under the Modi government. Remember, India today is making decisions that are in its own interest and not necessarily aligned to the worldview of someone else. Therefore, it's only natural that some people should feel that India is probably not aligned and not on their side of the business.
I'd like to offer to send anybody who wants the letter.
He's been targeting India even before. This is not the first time he's done it. He's done it at the Davos Economic Forum, and he did it in the Munich Security Conference earlier. He has been involved in attempting regime changes in many countries. This is not the first time that he has battled for democracy in countries where he thinks that governments are not in tune with his ideology. In his own home country, in Hungary, for instance, where now actually he's treated as a criminal, he has been trying to topple the present Hungarian government.
I've listened to George Soros and others who have huge investments or have had around the world say that the Asian economic crisis is over.
Economist Paul Krugman in 1999, where he spoke of this phenomenon where there are certain individuals who bet and gamble on a crisis. And they actually do that by engineering that crisis. They create the circumstances that lead to that crisis, and hence they benefit disproportionately. And this is what Soros has done over the decades, be it the currency crisis in the UK, in Germany, and other places. So that is what is happening here in India as well. That they are hoping to engineer a crisis and in the process benefit from it financially and push the kind